Keir Starmer defended Labour's policy to add 20% VAT onto private school fees, calling it a tough choice that will fund important changes. That is, despite fears the extra cost could force pupils into state schools and cause classroom sizes to increase. And they were fuelled over the weekend by Labour frontbencher Emily Thornberry giving an interview with Camilla Tominey of GB News. Have a look.
There are schools that certainly have vacancies. You know, there are my primary schools and my secondary schools have space and they're very welcome. And they are good schools and people should send their children there. I mean, it's fine, you know. And if we have to, in the short term, have larger classes, we have larger classes. You know,
so you will make classes larger to accommodate.
The birth rate goes up and down.
Right.
Now, that was quite a big moment, really. It's one of those rare moments in the campaign where Labour have run into a bit of bother. Starmer said yesterday that Emily Thornberry's claims were a bit wrong. There would be a negligible effect on class numbers. So there's then a bit of confusion about the policy. Labour say targeting private schools is actually going to fund 100,000 extra childcare places and pay for 6,500 new teachers. The Conservatives have accused Labour of using the politics of envy to punish private school children. Ayesha, what do you say to that?
Well, look, we've just been having a discussion about politicians having to make difficult choices because there isn't a lot of money around, and sometimes you have to make a strong choice as a politician and you have to give people quite an uncomfortable message. I mean, I feel quite conflicted about this, but I think Keir Starmer and his team and Bridget Phillipson, who is the Shadow Education Secretary, I think they really feel that this is the right thing to do. I think if you look at the gap between private schools and state schools in terms of spending per pupil, that has kind of doubled since 2010 because schools in the state sector are having a really, really difficult time. So I think to govern is to choose. I think this is going to be unpopular. I think a lot of people will feel the pain of it. I think it's a really tough decision to take, but I think we have got to do something to improve the situation of our state schools. And I think we've just been talking about how there's no magic money tree. We've got to make some tough choices. And I think this is the Labour Party taking a tough decision.
Well, yeah, it's certainly a very clear policy. What do you think, James?
Yeah, look, I don't agree with it. I think unfortunately it's one of those things. Again, I don't think Labour necessarily understand that the public schools and the private schools. I think they see it again as a class issue. I don't think they're just going, well, these people are the haves. We're going to add this tax on it. I think they forget that actually a lot of people who go to public school, and again, not woe is me, I went to public school, but my parents worked themselves into oblivion. If they put a 20% VAT on it, I would never have gone. Neither would my brother. They basically bankrupted themselves to do it. That was their choice. It was their money. We didn't have holidays. They scrimped and saved on lots of areas to be able to do that. Right?
Would that then have been better for our society? Because you would have gone to a state school and then we get all of their ambition fueling the parents in that state
listen,
school.
I can't comment on that. I'm sure if we all had a united school system and everything was fair and it was a utopia, potentially. All I know is that when you pay for a private school or a public school, when you're paying for private healthcare or whatever, your choice is you are hoping that you get a better, a quicker option, you provide more opportunities and advantages and experience. That's why. Now,
let's talk to Donna in Hull. Donna, you're a teacher, I gather?
Yes, I am, yes. Hi.
In the state sector or private sector?
State.
OK, and what do you think of this policy?
I think it's brilliant. I fully appreciate and understand, all the different opinions. At the end of the day, it's state schools that have been at the bottom of the barrel for 14 years. It's children's education that has been diminished for the past 14 years. And it's teachers we've been on strikes, we've been shouting and screaming for help from the government. There's nothing. Even during COVID, there was very little help from the government. It was actually, social people in the media were actually helping children a hell of a lot more. And famous footballers helping children get food into their stomachs, during COVID. This Conservative government do not care about the working class. And they're wolves in sheep's clothing. That's the end of the situation. They're not really there to help the public in terms of working class children, working class citizens. It's so difficult as a teacher to provide everything. Even now, in this day and age, the amount of SEND children who aren't getting the support, who aren't getting, the accreditations that they need. We don't have TAs. there's just no funding at all. This 1.5 billion that could come from a little bit of 20% tax from the wealthiest people in the UK could really help the rest of the public. We're on about, hold the working class, and, everyone help you British people.
Let James come in. Hang on, Donna. Let James come in.
Donna, could your school system take another 60, 70, 80,000 people, in the current structure? But if those couldn't afford
not.
So basically, if you taxed a load of public school or people or whatever you couldn't afford, and you got another, say, even small Conservative, 30,000 extra people into the system, could you cope with it?
We could cope with it if there was an additional 1.6 billion coming into the public sector.
How many are you thinking your school will get, Donna?
It depends. I mean, this is just a small section of funding that they're looking at getting from somewhere else. This is a small section of funding. Now look at the bigger picture. If they do put taxes on certain things, I mean, how many companies in the UK are tax evading? How many backhanded tax
we sound like we're going for a massive
so
range of tax rises here. I mean,
but can I just make one point? And I know people are worried about people leaving the private school sector to come into the state sector, and that could obviously cause problems. But if you just absolutely look at the facts, since 2003, school fees in the private sector in real terms have gone up by 55%, right? That's way above 20%. And the share of kids in private schools has remained stable for that period of time.
Fees go up and people still go.
Because, and I do take James' point, and I'll be honest, I went to a state school for my first 2 years, and then my parents scrimped and saved to put me and my brother into a private school. And I just think if you're in a position where you can do that, yes, you're scrimping and saving, but you'll probably find the money from somewhere, whether it's grandparents or other people.
But I occasionally get calls on my Radio 2 show from a couple who, like James's parents, the bricklayer married to the hairdresser, they couldn't find the state school in their area. They've just killed themselves to get their child into a private school. Now, when that child has to come out, they're going to be replaced by a Russian kid or whatever. And you end up with the private schools, assuming they still exist, will have an even more elite group of pupils. Look, they're going to be like a master race, aren't they?
But there is also the possibility that you raise the standards in state schools.
That's true as well. That's true. Coco's in Brighton. Where are you with this, Coco? You got kids at private school?
Well, they were in private school. I'm not a millionaire. I had to work hard to pay for their private school. I didn't go on holiday. I didn't go out to do all other things that the people did. So why someone like me should have been penalised?
Well, I mean, the answer is to raise the money for Donna's school, because Donna called earlier from Hull and they haven't got enough money, Coco.
That will not resolve the problem. The money of this VAT they want to put on the private school will not resolve the problem. The truth is, the real truth that all of us have to face, all these parties, they do not have enough people in the parliament, the cabinet, how you call it, they're capable to run the country. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Okay, Coco, thank you.
It's so terrible. Sorry, so terrible. By comparison with other parties in Europe, I think we have to thank God.
Oh, compared to other... OK, well, yes, well, whatever's going on in the EU at the moment is interesting, let's say. OK, Coco, we take your point. I think we will keep going with this because we've got so many calls. Michael in Southampton, hi.
Hi there, Jeremy.
What do you think about this? Because we got people saying... OK, so my argument was, do you end up with an even more elite private school system? But actually, maybe you end up with fewer private school places and therefore more equality.
Well, absolutely, Jeremy. I think we just need to ground this back in reality. 94% of kids attend state schools. Our focus surely should be on those 94% and not the 6% whose parents have bought privilege and sent their children to private schools. Those 6% of children, by the way, monopolise politics, business, the judiciary, and let's have it like the media as well, because, privately educated people, monopolise those key industries in our society, and we've got 94% of our kids going to state schools who don't have, the facilities and the money to
What if a parent,
our kids, and it's immoral.
Michael, what if a parent said to you they send their kids to private school, but they also still pay taxes that go to state schools, so they're paying double?
So be it. That doesn't worry me. I think it'd be wholly positive to have more of these privately educated children return back to the state sector.
Maybe that's
it. Engaged parents who want to improve the system.
Get James Haskell in the public school sector.
I've got a question for you. So every other area of your life you pay for things you want and things you choose for. You don't want to pay for school, and obviously we don't pay for healthcare if you don't want it. What is the problem with paying if there's an option and you feel it's a better option? Why is that stigma?
James, well, let me turn that back to you, James. If I said you can pay for a heart transplant to jump up a queue, do you think that would be morally acceptable?
Yes, he absolutely would.
100%. I wouldn't even think about
what part of that are you not failing to understand, Michael? Of course he thinks that's okay.
Yeah, of course. If my daughter needed a heart transplant, I'd pay for any amount of
So would you, Michael, surely?
Would you, Michael? Would you, if you needed a heart, would you pay for it or would you die?
Sorry, Jeremy.
Would you die, Michael?
Just to be clear, I wouldn't. I don't think it's morally.
It doesn't matter. Would you die, Michael? Would you take the heart? Would you take the heart or not the heart?
What if there was someone who medically needed it more than me?
You wouldn't take. So you'd die, would you, Michael? You're talking rubbish, mate. You're talking utter nonsense. Rubbish.
Rubbish.
Well, let Michael speak. Hang on, Michael.
Yeah, James. I think it just shows just a real lack of moral courage. To be entirely honest, if we're saying that someone has a clinical need more than you think it would be
that's why I never vote for Labour.
To be able to pay.
He's got his head in his hands now, Michael. Listen, Michael, the thing is that we do all have, and it may be easier to answer this question, Michael, if it's not about you, me and James, but if it's about our daughters, right? And they need an operation and we've got the money to pay for it, and without the operation they die. We're not thinking about who else is in the queue.
But can I just say, we've jumped into a very emotive hypothetical about dying and hearts, right?
That's Michael's fault.
But basically, the issue here is, to Michael's point, and I actually I was speaking at a conference of head teachers in the primary sector just on Friday in Cheltenham. State schools are being cut to the bone right now. You've got a situation where, look, James and I are lucky enough to have gone to really good schools, and we've gone to private schools, and you can see we've done all right for ourselves, right? We've been given privilege and advantage, and we've worked hard and all that kind of stuff.
He was quite a good rugby player, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I think it didn't necessarily speak. I know you're right. You are right.
I mean, but he is confident. Yeah, but look,
true.
You've got to be honest. Like, when you look at what's happening in schools right now, something is going really badly wrong for like the 96% or whatever.
If this fixed it, everyone will be in favour of it.
But this is an attempt to try. So on the one hand, we have these conversations. People go,
waving.
Nobody's got any big ideas, and then someone comes up with a big idea, and it's like, oh no, that might affect me, so it's a terrible idea.
Okay. We'll take more calls. We've been getting loads of phone calls on this, so let's just take some more after the break. Rosie in West Sussex, hi.
Oh, hi there, Jeremy.
Do you think it's the right policy?
Well, can I just say, initially, Ayesha just rubber stamped my point. She told us that her parents struggled to send her and her brother to school, to private school. I wonder if her parents could have afforded the extra 20%, that she's quite happy to deny other children the privilege of doing. So that's for you.
Is that fair? Okay.
Well, look, Rosie, I think
it is fair.
All right.
Okay, no, it's a fair, Rosie. It's a very fair question. And by the way, I have many friends who send their kids to private school. They were in the state sector. They didn't think their kids were getting a very good education in the state sector. They've moved them to a private school, and they are struggling. They're not earning a king's ransom. But do you know what? They have got enough money to afford, and yes, if it goes up by 20%, it will be a struggle for them, but they can do it, Rosie. They can do it. And also, a lot of them are getting extra help from their mum and dads as well. So they are in, I'm not saying they're rich, and I'm not saying things is going to be easy for them, but they are deciding to make those sacrifices because they know that the advantages that a private education provides, they think are going to be worth it. So to your question, I think my mum and dad, if the prices had gone up, would have scrimped and saved some more because they wanted to buy
Rosie,
that advantage.
how about that?
Oh, my goodness me. Let's be on belief to start with. Anyway, let me just go on to...
But why is it beyond belief? Because it's a very honest answer.
Because Ayesha told us quite clearly that her parents struggled to get to send them to private school, but now they could have struggled to find an extra 20%. That's not struggling. Anyway, Jeremy,
Rosie, can I put a question back to you?
No, Rosie, sorry. If you start on one thing, you've got to stick with it.
Hang on, Rosie. I just want to put a question to you. Since 2003, private school fees have gone up by 55% in this country, and it hasn't affected the number of children that have gone.
Yeah.
So what do you think's going on there, Rosie?
All right, let me tell you what I think if I'm going to get a chance to finish what I'm saying, Ayesha. They've gone up by, did you say 55% since in 21 years? Yeah.
Yes.
You're happy for them to go up by 20% in 1 year. There's a differse. That's mathematics.
All right.
You went to a private school, you would know that. Anyway, can I make my
Rosie,
point?
No, we're going to move on.
Rosie.
Thank you, Rosie. Wrong side of the bed today. Thank you, Rosie. Teresa in Wiltshire, hi.
Hello.
Hello. Where are you on this argument?
Well, I'm just phoning up to say that these state schools have got in such a state that I think they talk about levelling up. If if ordinary children can't get a decent education, where are we? My grandson is studying for his A-levels, physics and mathematics, among other subjects. They can't get a qualified teacher to teach him. They reckon they're 6 months behind. They had one professor, so-called really, really clever, come to. They couldn't understand. He couldn't speak English properly. Not only that, he'd never any experience with teaching. And so I think that when you talk about these ordinary children, it's okay, private, yes, it's lovely we can afford it, but the majority of children, they can't afford it. Their parents can't afford it, and they're suffering, and they're never going to have
But the thing is, this is, okay, so in principle, you like this idea. Will this money even touch the sides of the problems you're describing? Because I can't see, you're going to have to double the school's budget to sort it out, aren't you?
Well, I don't know. I think anything can help, but I think it's no good sitting back and doing nothing and the schools falling apart if they can't get qualified teachers and the children. I mean, like that, my grandson, that's his whole of his career and his future. If he can't get decent A-level results, he's got no future. And lots of other children are in the same position. And it's not fair that the majority of children suffer. I mean, something should be done about it.
Yeah, it sounds very, very bad. I mean, I suppose with private schools, you get the parents are such a force. When they get a teacher who doesn't perform, they're on them like a ton of bricks, and in the end they get fired. Linda in Northumberland, hello.
Hello there.
Now you've got a granddaughter at private school, have you?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, what do you think of this policy?
Well, I'm really worried about it. The thing that I'd like to address is that people seem to think that if a child is at private school, then it's a school like Eton or Harrow or something like that. My granddaughter goes to a school in Newcastle, Westfield, that's a great school for her, and her mother's a single parent, and she really struggles to pay the fees. We're just ordinary working class people. We've looked, if they put an extra 20% on the fees, we've started to look at state schools.
Yeah. James, that's the point of the policy in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but I think people will be shocked because, again, I think Linda, her point is exactly right. I think people have this perception, especially in the Labour Party, that it is Eton, it's 35, 40 grand. Lots of people pay far smaller amounts just because they feel like they want a school that's funded, because having money readily available, not relying on the government, not being state funded, is important. You can get things done quicker. But that will affect so many other people, and I think there will be a massive influx, because what I'm concerned about with Labour is, I've seen the interviews, a lot of time they haven't got figures to hand. They talked about school dinners and school foods. They couldn't tell you the numbers. They couldn't tell you the numbers of people conservatively that would move from public schools to state schools. If you're going to have policies, you need to work out the minutiae. I mean, Ayesha has got more detail here than I've seen from any of them. And she's, but now she's now in the House of Lords. So I just think, for me, I have a real concern. Okay.